It was a frantic, rather desperate way to work, but in retrospect, I have always been glad that my career began this way, for I was freed from all the burdens that new writers usually bear. I didn't agonize over whether I was expressing myself. I didn't worry over about art. I was writing under a pseudonym at very high speed. And the usual concerns about the quality or originality of one's output were irrelevant since my explicit goal was to be entirely unoriginal. To write something so perfectly suited to the paperback market that my publishers would buy my work without hesitation. I was engaged in a high pressure exercise where the goal was absolute unoriginality. My first paperbacks were standard variations on the 1960s Cold War spy story made popular by Ian Fleming. In my novels, the women were all beautiful, the men all drove Ferraris, and nearly everybody carried a gun. These books were great fun to do, in part because they had no connection to my everyday life as a medical student. I suppose it was inevitable that the pressure to produce new stories quickly would lead me to write a story, to produce new stories quickly, and would enable me to write a novel with a medical setting. The advantages were obvious. No research was required, and I had a great many experiences to draw upon. Some of these experiences troubled me very much. In my student days, I was often provoked to the high moral indignation that often characterizes young people in their 20s. But it was also true that American medicine in the 1960s was very different from what it is today. Those were the days before Medicare made physicians rich and malpractice made them suspicious, before group practices made them interchangeable, and proliferating lab tests made them technocrats. In those days, medicine was considered to be a calling. Doctors were revered, the public ranked physicians just below Supreme Court justices. Perhaps not surprising, medicine in the 1960s was a distinctly self satisfied profession. Problems and abuses often were not seriously addressed. They were only the faintest glimmerings of the ethical issues which would become so prominent in later years. One issue ignored by medicine in my student days was the problem of abortion, which was then for the most part illegal in the United States. A million American women flew out of the country every year to have an elective abortion. Those who could not afford the plane fare often showed up, septic and bleeding, in hospital emergency rooms. There were abortionists in every city, backroom mills, and whispered addresses passed to frightened women in need. A tawdry, dangerous industry which the medical profession pretended did not exist. I remember asking a senior physician why the profession did not address the inquiries and health hazards of the present situation. Abortion is illegal, he replied. I know, I said, it's also medically dangerous and unfair. But it's illegal, he said, as if that was all there was to say about it. I felt there was more to say, and I devised a story that would talk about my concerns. I wrote A Case of Need in 10 days during spring break. I sent it to my publisher and received in reply the call I had been reading for so long. We like it, my editor said, but we want some revisions. Oh no, I groaned. You don't understand, he said. This is good news. We want to publish this book in hardcover, but we think it needs some revision first. No, I said, let's just publish it in paperback, the way we always do. There was a puzzled silence. Usually, authors want their book published in hardcover, he said. I don't, I said, and I don't want to revise it. I'm in school, I have no time. But in the end, he talked me into rewriting the novel during the summer, and A Case of Need was published the following year, in 1968. There was no photo of the author, Jeffrey Hudson, identified only as a pseudonym of an American scientist who was educated in Boston and currently lives in London. I thought it wise to place the author far from potential interviewers. The book caused a small stir in Boston medical circles. All students read it and asked, "Who's this Hudson guy who knows so much about the medical school?" I joined in the conversations. Yes, I would say, I wonder who he is. But I didn't want anyone to know that it was serious business, and any student who was writing thrillers was obviously not showing proper seriousness. But I was alarmed when I learned, some months later, that the book had been nominated for an Edgar by the Mystery Writers of America as the best mystery of the year. My agent, Lynn Nesbitt, called to say that I would have to go to the banquet in New York and accept it if I won. That prospect was horrifying because it would reveal my identity. I consoled myself with the hope that I wouldn't win it. As luck would have it, I did win. Late one Friday afternoon, I slipped out of the hospital, flew down to New York, and accepted my award.